Now we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. And the way that I like to factor trinomials, which are the quadratic equations or something similar that we see right here, is I like to rewrite them as a grouping problem first. But when you first look at a problem, you should always look for the easiest thing, which is a GCF. And this one right here, you could already tell has an x that is in common. And the reason why you should pull out the GCF is it just makes the whole problem easier to look with, especially if there is a number involved with the GCF, because pulling out a number can really reduce the other values and just make it a lot easier to do. Now, the way that we rewrite this as a grouping problem is the first thing we want to do is say, well, we have A, B, and C involved here. We want to multiply A times C, and that would be 1 times 14, which is obviously 14. Now, the way to do a grouping problem is to look for numbers that multiply to this, but also will add to the middle term b, whatever that is. And the reason why we want to do this is because that will guarantee that the thing will factor by grouping after we pick those two numbers. So we start listing the factors of 14. Well, there's 2 and 7, there is, 7 and 2, and there's 1 and 14. Now, whenever I'm looking at that, I need to add these numbers to 9. So 2 and 7 looks like a good bet, but 2 and 7 doesn't make negative 9, it makes a positive 9. So we can't forget that we also have the negative versions of our factors. Negative 2 times negative 7 is still the positive 14, and they will add together to get this negative 9 that we want. So we'd rewrite the problem. 1x squared, we'd have a negative 2x, we'd have a negative 7x, and a positive 14. Basically what we're doing here is uncombining like terms. Don't forget that there is still an x out in front, that is this x from here that we pulled out at the very beginning. It needs to come down to keep the problem the same. Now from here we have a grouping problem. We can look at the first two objects, the second two objects, making sure the negative sign stays on the inside of the parentheses there, and we're going to pull out the GCF of each. So in the first group we'd have an x that is in common, and we could leave that within 1x minus 2. In the second group, we'd have a negative 7 that is in common, which would again leave us with a 1x minus 2. And then, of course, this stuff is still all in one big set of parentheses with an x out in front. That is this x right there. Now, on the inside, we have to look at the leftover stuff, the quotients of here. That is the 1x minus 2's. And you notice that they are the same. So what I can do is cross them off and pull them out as a binomial GCF. So we'd have a 1x minus 2 that would be out in front of there. And then we'd have the x and the negative 7 that were the GCFs before. We, of course, still have this x that is out in front that's just sort of being brought down. I don't need a big set of parentheses around these two guys because it's all multiplication. So the fully factored version would be x times 1x minus 2 times x minus 7, and we could write those in any order.